This is Matt Rosen, and this is the Grit Mindset with me, your host, Matt Rosen. The mission of the Grit Mindset is to inspire and empower our listeners by delving deep into the journeys of those who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger. Through authentic conversations, we uncover the mindsets, strategies, and lessons that have propelled these individuals to overcome adversity and achieve success. My aim is to provide actionable insights and real-world advice to help our listeners cultivate their own grit and navigate their personal and professional lives with confidence and resilience. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this week's episode of The Grit Mindset. I'm your host, Matt Rosen. Great to have you with us. Today, we're going to be talking with a friend and educator who runs a local Catholic school here in Dallas. Here with us today is the president of Bishop Dunne Catholic School, Gabe Moreno. Welcome to The Grit Mindset.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you on the show. You've got a great story I'm looking forward to hearing and talking about how you're cultivating grit both within yourself and within the children. My daughter actually goes to Bishop Dunne, and I've gotten to know you through that time there. So maybe let's start by having us tell you just a little bit about yourself and where you grew up and just a little bit of your early background.
Sure. I grew up here locally in Dallas in the Oak Cliff area, and I'm actually back at Bishop Dunne for the third time in my life. Product of Catholic education, I went to Bishop Dunne as a student and graduated in the early 2000s. From there, was able to play baseball, play football, participated in some drama productions as well, and did well academically and earned a scholarship to go to the University of Dallas, which is actually located in Irving in the Las Colinas area. From there, I graduated with a degree in business leadership and decided I was going to take on the world and go corporate and do all of that stuff. And when I got there, took a real hard, deep look at myself and what my goals were for my life. And it's not where it was.
Yeah.
So I ended up going back to Bishop Dunne to coach baseball and to teach math. So I taught Algebra 1, Algebra 2, geometry, coached baseball for a few years, and every year it seemed like administration was asking me, hey, could you do this? Hey, could you do this? Hey, what do you think about doing that? And in your early 20s is a time where I feel like it's a time just to say yes, because you want to try and get as many experiences as possible that are guiding you in your life and what you may feel you're called to do. So through my second stint there as a faculty member, I actually was teaching, coaching, admissions, financial aid, and then ended up moving over to the academic side as well. And during that time, went on to the University of Notre Dame to get a master's degree in educational leadership. So from there, ended up leaving Bishop Dunne for some time to find out, what else is out there. Worked at two other local Catholic schools, doing some development work, some communications work, some marketing work, building relationships. And now, 2 years ago now, the board of directors at Bishop Dunne asked me to come back and rejoin the group and take the organization to the next level as president of the school.
No, that's awesome. That's a great story. Tell us about some of your early years. I understand you grew up in Oak Cliff, which is the neighborhood that I live in. What was that like?
Growing up in Oak Cliff in the 90s was a interesting time. It was always fun. And going to Catholic schools my entire life, I feel like I had a really sheltered experience, but also exposed to the things that were out there. We were involved in everything. I think my parents' philosophy was like, get them involved and then they stay out of trouble, right? Yeah. So we were, every season,
so you stayed out of trouble for the most part?
Trouble, exactly. So every season we were playing something, whether that be soccer, whether it be baseball, whether it be basketball. We were just always involved and always doing something. My parents were very involved in the church. So we would be, every Sunday we were at church, and in my family that meant half a day, because it was church in the morning, brunch until 1 or 2, and then you're getting ready for the next week, right? But always busy, always fun. And the area, Oak Cliff, has just grown so much. It's changed so much, and it's really a great place to be in the city right now.
Yeah. Well, tell us about some of your time in sports, because I find that that's where a lot of people start to cultivate their grit. So, and before we even go there, what does grit mean to you? It's something I ask every guest on the show.
Yeah, grit to me is perseverance. It is knowing that you're going to hit some roadblocks, but finding a way to push the roadblock out of the way, climb over it, go under it, whatever it is, even if you have to go through it, finding a way to reach that goal that you've set for yourself, or the goal that is in front of you. So,
and where do you think you first started to develop the grit that you have today? Was it in Oak Cliff? Was it playing sports? Share with us where that really began for you.
Yeah, athletics is really where it was. I mean, as I mentioned, I played baseball my entire life, and I think the game of baseball is one of failure, right?
Yeah.
You were constantly failing. So when you get a taste of success in baseball, it's almost a cause for celebration, right? You just get used to the idea that you're not going to be successful all the time. But what's more important is that you're prepared and that you are doing your best every single step of the way, My time, I caught for most of my career. I ended up switching over to third base about in my senior year of high school. And to me, that's a big example of grit as well, because I knew at the time, even though I had caught for 3 years at the high school level, the person that was behind me as a catcher was a great ball player. He was fast and very smart, but we had a need in another position that I knew I could play as well. So I gave up my starting spot as a catcher to move over to third base to help the team. And to me, as it relates to grit, is look, I know that that's not my best position, but I'm a better teammate taking that on for the team and allowing this other person to be in our lineup as well. And knowing the goal that we had for the season, making the playoffs, making a deep run, that was going to give us our best shot. So I went to the coach and I said, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? And he agreed with me. We tried it out, and he was in the lineup all season. I was in the lineup all season, and we had a great year.
Well, that's cool. It shows that you could be a utility player, flex, try something different, not be afraid to fail. And
Exactly. And it was I had never played that position, but being a third baseman, the biggest thing is one, you have to have zero fear. And from being behind the plate, I mean, there wasn't any of that. And two, you got to be able to throw across the diamond. So was able to do that from throwing across from home plate to second. Now it's just throwing from third to first. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to have a good arm to make that throw.
Exactly right.
No, that's awesome. So how do you feel like your time in baseball prepared you for your professional career?
Yeah, I think the athletic scene for baseball, both as a player and trying to be a team player and understand team dynamics, and being a catcher, seeing the field, commanding the field, knowing situationally what do we have to do when, then just put me in a position to captain the ship, if you will, as the player captain, understanding the game, understanding how to do all that, and moving the pieces. When I transitioned to a coach, even more so, you are now managing the game, managing more aspects of the game. When are we going to do what? When are we bunting? When are we hitting and running? But more importantly, now that I'm in a corporate setting, it's how do you manage personalities? Mm-hmm. How do you build trust within your team, within your players to get the best out of them? How do you maximize their strengths and minimize their weaknesses and put them in the best place to succeed?
Yeah, so what's a tactical example of where you've had to do that?
We have gone through some restructuring. When I first came in, looking at the team and saying, okay, where are our strengths, where are our weaknesses? And as you'll recall, in the second year, I made a promotion to one of our deans and moved her to assistant principal of academics. She was the one who was doing a lot of the work and a lot of the heavy lifting on curriculum, on design, working across various schools with curriculum. So it made sense to put her over that position and to take the ball and run with it.
Yeah.
In the same position, our assistant principal at the time is uniquely gifted at building relationships, wanting to see the kids succeed.
He is.
And building up the kids as much as possible. So I moved him into the role of assistant principal for formation, where his sole job is to make sure that the kids are becoming great human beings. That's really what he is.
Yeah. Well, you've come a long way to where you're come to the helm and doing good things and getting the school in a better place. Talk to our audience about a particularly difficult time you had to overcome, where you had to really dig deep into your grittiness to overcome an obstacle somewhere along your career. Maybe share that story with us if you could.
Yeah, I think I talked a little bit earlier about now it's my third stint at the school, and I never anticipated leaving the school for that second time, and that was hard time for me because it was a gut check.
Is when you left or when you came back?
Yeah, when I left the second time was really a gut check for me. I had held the position of interim principal for the year. And I thought, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I'm doing the good work. When the decision was made to move in another direction, I was like, okay, now I really have to understand what is going on. Where am I supposed to be?
Why you didn't get the role?
Why I didn't get the role, and what is it that I need? Right?
Mm-hmm.
What is my next step? So, after a lot of conversations with mentors, trying to figure out, okay, is education really what I want to do? Is this really where I want to be? And some pushing from my wife and from other people as well. I was like, okay, we got to move. You can't stand still. You got to move. Yeah. I was able to land a position still in education, but exploring a different area of education, as I mentioned, the communications, the development piece of it as well. And so for me, that was really a learning moment where I had to say, okay, how do I pivot?
Yeah.
This isn't what I thought it was going to be, but how do I pivot and still do the most good that I can do in an area that I'm passionate about?
So they said, hey, you're not ready to be principal, president. You had to go find a different line of work. What was that experience like? What did you have to go through to find the right spot? And what ultimately gave you the confidence to come back into the role you're in today?
Great question. The process of finding the next position was really exploratory and just putting some feelers out. I had built a really great network with the diocese at the time, the leadership at the time, just going to different events and being able to talk to a lot of different leaders or people who were becoming leaders, and with my network at Notre Dame as well, reaching out to them and asking them, okay, well, like, here's what I'm thinking. What's next? What do you think? And ultimately, I knew that there was another school that was looking for leadership positions. And I reached out and asked, hey, I'm interested in this position. And this is like a God thing, right? Like, I reached out on a Saturday morning because I was like, okay, I need to make a decision by this time. I set a deadline. I was like, I need to make a decision by this time. Day came, reached out, sent an email and a text to one of my contacts and said, hey, I'm interested in this. I got a phone call that day and I was like, hey, what are you doing today? Because interviews are today. So you can come down. We're willing to interview. So I was at breakfast with my wife at the time that I got the phone call.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is strange. I took the phone call and my wife was like, let's go home. You got to go prep. You got to do it. So we went home, got dressed, went back out, did the interview process. 2 interviews later, they asked me to join their organization as well in a different capacity, not in the education scene, but in the communications part. And at the time, the school was looking to grow. So I really got the opportunity to build a program of how are we talking about ourselves? What are we saying about ourselves? How are we going to find those families that want what we have? And building bridges between all of the different communities. So that's where I got my interest in a lot of development work. Spent 5 years there, moved on to another organization and spent 2 years doing development work there. And when I got the phone call to ask about this current position, I think anytime you're stepping into a leadership position, there's some questioning about, am I ready? Is this really what's going on? Is this what's going to happen? And I tend to have a philosophy of 3. If you hear things 3 times, like, you got to pay attention. So when I got the first call, I was like, oh, I'll think about it. Then I got a second call. Then I got a third call. And I was like, okay, let me at least go through the process. Let's see what this is all about. If nothing else, I'll at least get the experience of going through the process.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the board made the decision to extend an offer to me, and I was ecstatic and ready to go and take the school, a place that I love, has given so much to me, has given so much to my family, to the entire Oak Cliff community, and wanted to make sure that it can be the best it can be.
That's awesome. So you went back to the same place at 7-8 years earlier, told you weren't ready, went to 2 other different opportunities to then ultimately get the position you wanted.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. So if you were to look back at yourself 8-9 years ago, what would you have told yourself?
Oh man, I think it would be like, it's not the end of the world. Go. You got to get some experience.
Yeah.
You got to understand more about what is the landscape of the entire city, the educational opportunities that are around. What is everyone doing? And when you get to see things from the outsider perspective, when you come back, you just have more tools to pull out of your tool belt. So it was a valuable experience to me. In fact, a mentor told me before I left the second time, she came to me and she knew I was struggling a little bit. And she said, most organizations won't let you take a leadership position until you've gone somewhere else. Yeah. And I always kept that in mind. So I always knew I was going to come back. I didn't know how fast it was going to be, but it was always with an intent of, okay, how is this going to help me grow? How is this going to help me in the future? And find those experiences to do that.
Well, I know that a lot of the other parents in the community itself is glad to have you back at the helm. What do you see as the road ahead looking like? What are the opportunities and the challenges for you in the role now that you have it?
Yeah, I think the educational landscape is changing. I think that with the onset of technology, with the onset of AI, we really need to look at our educational model to provide the students with what they're going to need in the future and working with those kinds of tools, right? So for us, I think the future is going to set on 3 legs, if you will. And the first one is, what is it going to take to make really good humans, right? Right now, AI and computer can't do the human skills as well as humans do. So, and they can't look somebody in the eye. They can't have a conversation.
I don't think you want to do an interview with AI, do you?
No, not really. So I think for us, we're going to start focusing more on the human skills and the human aspects and making sure that our students are aware of themselves and aware of others in a way that's going to make all boats rise and make the community better. The second part of that is trying to build what I call confidence through competence. And that means that we're teaching Algebra 2, we're teaching geometry, we're teaching history, we're teaching all those things, not sheerly for content knowledge, but for skill building. And we've reached a time where we need to be explicit with the students and let them know, like, yes, you need to know this content, but also you need to know these skills. And that's really what it's about. Let's use this content to build these skills.
Don't just teach to a test.
Exactly. So whether that's getting up and giving a presentation, or whether that's planning out an entire project, or whether it's, connecting the dots to see, okay, well, what kind of decision would you make knowing all of these kinds of things, right? I think our students, once they're able to build those kinds of skills, get the confidence in doing those skills, it's going to set them apart from their peers. And then the last thing is entrepreneurship and financial literacy. I think that we, as a society, is a school, we have to be telling these students and teaching the students how money works, how they can use money in their favor. And if we can build confidence in their entrepreneurship skills, then they will feel like they can take a gamble on themselves in order to make a living. They never feel like they have to go work for somebody to pay them. It's, I can do it on my own.
That's awesome. I mean, that's part of the inspiration of starting this podcast, was to inspire people to take that first step, ask for that next role, really to encourage them to move forward. And one of the things I've talked about with other guests, and you and I have talked about offline, is the fact that this latest generation or two doesn't maybe have some of the same grit and fortitude of those that went before. So like, what can we do to change that? And you're like in the perfect position as the head of a school to help drive a different outcome. So you kind of hit on some points, but maybe go through what you're doing to instill and build confidence and grit within the base of students at Bishop Dunne.
For sure. I like to use the phrase, they have some frustration intolerance, right? I think that the world that we have created for our kids, even for our adults, is a world of convenience, a world of ease. If I can't get it fast, I don't need it. But the truth is that that's not how life works. Life is a series of events that are constantly teaching you something, and very rarely will you say like, oh, I got that right, So for us as a school, it's important that in the classroom, we are working with the students and giving them the opportunities to fail fast, if you will. not so much failing the class, but giving them little nuggets and little bits of like, okay, here's where we are, here's where we're going. Here's where we are, here's where we're going. In education, we call that the zone of proximal development, right? Whatever we think the students are capable of, we're going to go just a little bit higher.
Yeah.
And then just a little bit higher, and then just a little bit higher, so that the students understand nothing comes easy.
Yeah.
You're going to have to work for it. And what a great feeling it's going to be when you get there.
Well, I think that's one of the biggest challenges with traditional, educational environments is that kids are worried, what if I get a bad grade on a test and then I can't come back and then I can't get in high school, I can't get into college, and it's just like this cascading effect. So everyone's afraid to fail.
Right. But the truth is that it's the little failures that are going to teach you the most.
Yeah, and you're going to have failures throughout life.
Exactly.
Definitely once you get out of school. So
exactly.
I think that's the right mindset is how do we prepare kids that they're going to face failures and they're going to have to overcome them, but without it feeling like it's this punishment that's going to come.
Exactly. Well, and even on that, the other part of it too is again, going to that competence or confidence through competence is understanding that success is not just going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, how do you prepare for that? What are your markers in the middle to get to your goal and focus on those smaller little markers in order to get to the end goal, right? So we have students who will say like, oh, I want an A in the class. Great. Well, what are you going to do to get the A in the class, right? Day in and day out, what are you focusing on to get the A in the class? It's not just, oh, I have the quiz in 2 weeks or I have the test in 4 months or in 4 weeks. It's, what did you do today to reach that goal? Because that's really where the magic happens.
Well, I'm glad you're supporting kids because you got parents like me saying, hey, you better have all A's. Well, how is that being accepted by both the students and the teachers alike?
I think that the teachers are really open to it. They love it. They see that it's growth. In fact, we are moving to a growth measure throughout the year for the next year. So we'll be doing those 3 times a year, once in the fall to get a baseline, once in the winter to see how much we've grown, and then once in the spring to see, okay, over the year, what have we done? And really trying to focus in on growth. I think the students is a mixed bag. Some students really like it and they're like, okay, I get it. I see where I got to go. Other students, but I just want the A. Okay, this is a learning opportunity. This is a learning that you have to do the things to be successful.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you got the right mindset going into it. And, early in our conversation, you talked about mentors that help get you to where you are. I think we all have relied on some, but maybe talk about some of the most important ones to you and what they've meant to you along this journey.
Yeah. I am a strong believer that your network is really what gets you through some of the toughest and some of the greatest times. Yeah. And I know that has been very true for me. I constantly look for people who are doing amazing things and doing things well. And I try to go out of my way to introduce myself to them and say, hey, I want to know, how are you doing things? What's your story? How does that align with my story? And how can we work together on some of this stuff? I've had one mentor of mine who's been with me since I was in high school.
Oh, wow.
Just always a great guy. He opened my eyes quite a bit. I'm lucky enough to have an older brother. And my older brother is extremely athletic. He is the best athlete in our family. And I was talking to my mentor at the time, and I was wanting to go play college baseball. And he was talking to me about, like, you can go play, you can do this. And I said, but, I look at my brother and he's knocking it out the park, literally knocking it out the park. And he said, but you know what, Gabe? He's like, you're willing to work for it. Yeah. And that's more important. And that really shifted my mindset of understanding, okay, it comes with hard work. It comes with hard work. It comes with having a challenge in front of you and wanting to do everything you can to overcome that challenge or to reach that goal. In fact, when I got to college, I was number 2. I was the second catcher behind somebody. And in my head, I was like, no, I'm going to be number 1. I've worked my tail off in order to accomplish that goal. Again, this guy, very talented, great ball player. Yeah. But I knew that if I was going to get that number 1 spot, it was going to be through hard work. He had me on sheer talent. Yeah. But through hard work, I was going to get it.
So did you? How'd that play
No,
out?
actually, my arm gave out before I could. My arm gave out before I could. So I got a bout of tendonitis and hanging up the baseball cleats. That's another one of just like, wow, this has been a part of my life for 20 years. What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Right? I'm not showing up early. I'm not taking swings in the batting cage. I'm not doing long toss every day. So there was a little bit of finding myself and what I was wanting to do. And with all of my extra time at that point, right? But it worked out. I ended up being able to go to work and worked in the food industry.
Yeah.
So when you're in the food industry, you practice people skills all the time.
Yeah.
Like that is the job, right?
Yeah,
Is people
absolutely.
skills. So got to sharpen some of that up and really understand, okay, how do I work with people? How do I present? How do I be helpful to as many people as possible?
And what made you ultimately decide you wanted to be an educator and run a school?
Yeah, I really think that there's no more noble cause than education. When you are able to help a family in the formation of their child, that takes a lot of trust and that takes a lot of confidence in what we are able to provide. And so we know that students are all different and come to us in various walks of life. But when you can impact a person to help them grow, to help them get into wherever they want to go, to help them become the people God created them to be, there's nothing better than that. And knowing that you've been able to have a positive impact on somebody else. In fact, at the school, we talk a lot about making sure that we are igniting purpose and unlocking potential.
Yeah.
That is what we are about, igniting purpose and unlocking potential and making sure that these students, every single day, that they feel that they are smart, they feel that they are capable, and most importantly, they feel like they are loved. If we can give them those three things every day, they're unstoppable.
No, that's great. Any particular student you're particularly proud of, the story you have that you can share?
There's a lot of them, and we've got 3 students from our senior class this year. Our valedictorian worked hard. He was with us from 6th grade all the way through 12th grade. Very personable. He can talk to anyone. Very bright, hardworking student. He's going to the University of Texas.
Awesome.
In Austin to study aerospace engineering. Our salutatorian came to us as a freshman from another local Catholic school, and she is going to be going to Texas A&M.
It's my alma mater.
Yeah. And then another student that we've had who came to us in 7th grade, and he is just an incredible human being. He came to us in 7th grade. He struggled academically quite a bit, but always working hard, always making sure he was passing his classes, always doing whatever he needed to do. He was our drum major. He was involved in drama. He was involved in pretty much any club that he could be involved in, he was involved in. And he made it through, and he's actually going to be going to TCU on scholarship for music and playing with them.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I can definitely see the passion you have about the kids and through this interview and the conversations we've had, and that's awesome. So as we're wrapping up here, any kind of final thoughts on grit or overcoming adversity you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I think that at least my philosophy has always been life is a series of events that are challenging you to get better and better and better.
Yeah.
And every single moment is a learning moment. You're getting an education in and of itself, just saying, okay, here's what's happening. What is my decision and how does this make it better? Anytime you do a review of saying, okay, that point in my life, what did I learn? And how did that make me a better person? I have a tattoo here on my arm. It says, who do you carry your torch for? And I got that tattoo when I was about 21 years old. And now I look at it every day and it still is the same message to me. It's like, where are we going? What is your goal? Who's important?
Yeah.
And how are you living your life every day to make sure that those people know that they're important?
No, that's awesome. Well, any other closing thoughts or things that I should have asked you or you wanted to cover?
No, I think this was a great interview. Thank you so much for having me on. I think that times at the school, we're moving in a new direction, and I think that it's going to be great. I know that our students and our faculty members are on board and where we want to go and what we want to give to our students. Again, making great human beings who know that their purpose is to help others along in their journey as well.
No, well, that's awesome. It's been great having you on the show. It's been great getting to know you, and glad my daughter's a student at your school, and glad she's going to finish out high school there. So thank you for coming on. Thanks for sharing the story, going through from Oak Cliff to baseball to 3 times at Bishop Dunne, and hopefully we'll have you there for a long time to come. So to our audience that's been listening with us today, hopefully you have something you can take away from the conversation with Gabe. Till our next episode, hope you listen in next time, and until then, stay gritty.